Welcome back to 242 Math. I am your host Raphael Thompson, and today we'll be looking at grade 1. Yeah, I need the parents and the teachers for grade 1 to tune into this because we'll be looking at the topics for the Christmas term, the first term that's coming up for the grade 1 students, and ensure that they understand what they have to do during this time. Okay, so here we go. Get ready. First thing, positional words like top, middle, and bottom. That's the first that we're going to be looking at. And there are two things you want children to do. First of all, have them to place something on a given shelf, place something on the top shelf. Have them to identify something on a shelf, where is the ball, and then make sure your activities go from hands-on, then the pictures. They can cut out, color, paste, and begin instructions with a word, problem, or situation as much as possible. Okay, so just begin with top, middle, bottom, and then you proceed to other words. And here I have an example of top, middle, and bottom shelf. And you can put one item first before you move to more. One item on the top, one item in the middle, one item on the bottom. Make sure they're different items, and then ask questions. And then move them off, and then say place it on the top, or place it on the middle, or place it on the bottom shelf. So you start simple. Okay, and you can also use the street light, the red light, and you can say top, what is the light on the top, which light is in the middle, and which light is on the bottom. Okay, and then you can use your everyday experiences with the traffic light, because they should have some experience of the traffic light from going out with you, going to school or going home from school or going out. Okay, 2. Other positional words, then you move on to above, below, over. So again, have the student or child place things above, below, over something else, or have the student or child identify things above, below, over something else. So you can again look at the shelf, top, middle, bottom, and then place something in the middle and say what's over it or what's below it. Or you can also look at the traffic light situation again, and here I have a question where identify the object above or on top of the flag, identify the object below or at the bottom of the flag, and then the traffic light situation again you can bring into play and look at the color for the lights. Make sure they know colors before you get to the traffic light, and then they will be able to understand it better. If not, then you have to teach those the red, yellow, and the green before you do the traffic light. Okay, another example, circle the bird above the tree. Okay, so once they know the concept and you give them these questions, the students should be able to answer it properly. So you say circle the bird above the tree, circle the bird below the tree. You can also give as a question and see what the child is able to do. If they can't get it correct, no worries, just reteach, guys. Okay, 3, attributes. You can sort objects, and first of all, you can sort them based on color. Okay, and remember, while you're doing all of this, bring numbers into play again, so that before you get to it, they will know the numbers. Okay, so have a student or child pick things of a particular color, or have them identify things with certain colors. So again, 2 things you want them to be able to do for color. And you can have your plate and sort it. They put red items on the red, blue items with the blue, green with the green, and white with the white. But you would have to present them with these blocks or cubes or whatever you're using, and then let them sort them based on color only. And you decide what colors you want to deal with first. Eventually you deal with all of them. Okay, we move on to other attributes, sorting objects again, and you're looking at up, down, inside, outside. Okay, so have student or child place things up, down, inside, outside, or have the student or child identify things that are up, down, inside, outside. And a good activity would be to go outside for this one, and they look up and then they look down. In the classroom, do the same thing, look up and look down, and they can identify things. In the room, they can do the same thing. And here are some questions. Circle the object which is above the flamingo, and circle the object which is below the watermelon. The next one, is the grouper inside or outside the fish tank? Bubble in the correct answer. And they have inside, outside. Is the tomato inside or outside the box? Bubble in the correct answer. Inside or outside. Again, don't feel too bad if they get something wrong. That's a teachable moment for you if they get it wrong. Okay, flat shapes, we move on. And again, you would present students with shapes, and the shapes you're concerned with would be circles, squares, triangles, and rectangles. You're not concerned, you could be concerned with color at this stage. They can sort them based on color, but the main thing you want them to sort these shapes on is sort them based on number of sides. And so you put the shapes with no sides, the shape with 3 sides, and the shapes with 4 sides. And here you have the shapes that they would be concerned with: the circle, the square, the triangle, and the rectangle. The circle, no sides. The square would have 4 equal sides, and the triangle, 3 sides. Rectangle, 4 sides. Opposite sides are equal. So they have to make a distinction between the square and the rectangle. The square is a type of rectangle, but all of the sides are equal. So you have to make that distinction. Okay, and so you let them sort the shapes. Let them put the shapes with no sides on that plate, the one with 3 sides on that plate, the one with 4 sides on the other plate. And you can challenge them with this. Can a shape have 2 sides? Ask them, let them experiment and see if they can come up with an answer. But in most of these instances, try and challenge the kids and see what they do. Okay, and we move on. Again, flat shapes. Now we're only dealing with triangles. So here you can bring color into it and shape. Okay, so color, they can cut out, paste triangles. And the main thing you want them to do is to hold up the triangle, count the sides, and count the corners. So they have to know what corners are if they're going to count the corners, and you have to demonstrate that to them. Okay, so here you have the triangle. The triangle would have 3 sides. Count them. Numbers come into play, and you can write that number, 3, and then 3 corners. So demonstrate that to them as well, and let them show you the corners and show you the sides on the triangle. And you can do different color triangles and let them sort them at this stage. They should know colors. Question, circle the shape that is a triangle, and they would have to circle the shape with 3 sides. If they get it wrong, guys, do not worry. Just go back and reteach what we just went over. Okay, and then they would be able to get it and recognize it. Then have them draw a triangle. That's important. Okay, mass. Mass is how heavy or light something is, and you could say it's heavier than, or lighter than, more or less than, or the same as. So they compare weight and let them know mass is the same as weight. It really isn't, but at this stage they don't need to be able to differentiate between the two. So compare weight and use 2 items. Begin with 2 items and let them lift it and compare. Then you move on to pitches. So in the pitches, which is heavier, circle the correct answer. They must know about a watermelon and about a peanut in order to answer that question. So that's why I'm saying move from objects they know about to objects to other things. Now the picture at the bottom, which is lighter, circle the correct answer. They must know about the butterfly and know about the watermelon. So make sure you present them with things they are familiar with at this stage in order for them to give an answer. Okay, next we move on to temperature. And the temperature means how hot or cold something is. Hot is having a high temperature, cold is having a low temperature. Again, you want them to, at this stage, just to know that. They don't need to know about thermometer and Celsius and Fahrenheit, all that stuff. Just comparing 2 items based on how they feel. Now you can determine hot or cold items by touch, but be careful with hot. So you don't want them to stick their finger in a hot cup of tea. So be careful with that. And you can let them sort items with pictures. Is it hot or cold based on the picture? And they can cut out and put it or paste it under hot if it's hot, under cold if it's cold. How would they know it's hot? They look at the hot steam coming up from something to show it's hot. Or they can look at a glass and see it sweating and they know that it's cold. So again, or you can have the winter and summer clothing that they would look at. Attributes, again, sorting objects based on color. Again, sorting exercise, and they can sort. You can bring in cereals, crackers, Skittles, link cubes, attribute blocks. You're using color for them to sort at this stage. Again, this would probably be a final lesson for color. So they would have all of the things that they need to sort, and they are presented with plates that they sort them on. And again, I have it here. You can do one plate, or and you can have it in 4. You put red, blue, green, white stuff, or just put it in 2. The ones who are not as fast as the others, let them do the yellow and the purple, just do 2, and the others can do 4 on a plate. Or you can have one plate with red, one with blue, one with green, one with white. Okay, so it depends on the child that you're working with to decide stuff like that. Here I have the ones with green, blue, red, and yellow. Okay, or it could be a group exercise, small group exercise. If you're working with 2 or more students, then you can let them work together on it. One child, you decide how you're going to do the divisions, and let them sort based only on color. Later on, they look at sorting on shape, but for now, you want to make sure they understand the colors. Now you're sorting attributes, sorting objects, and you're sorting on size. You're starting with 2 objects, with 2 items. Okay, and they will identify if it's small or big, and then they will identify. You want them to identify it, then you want them to place. They can place the small or big item. So 2 things they must be able to do here: identify, and then use it to place something. Again, you can bring the plates into play and let them and use the shapes. Again, it goes back to reinforcing what you've already done. And you can have them cut out a big triangle and a small triangle, and let them place it. Do the same with a circle, a square, and a rectangle. So this will reinforce shapes, and it will also reinforce size, big or smaller. Always start with 2 items first before you move on to more than 2. Okay, we move on to more flat shapes, and for this we're dealing with circles. Now we've already done triangles. Next, you can look at the circle, pick up the circle, count the sides, and the child may be tempted to say it has 1 round side, but it doesn't really have any sides. Okay, and then they count the corners, no sides. Shade in or color circles, cut out circles and paste them on chart. And so here you can reinforce colors again, and then reinforce size, big or small. Next, they move on to patterns, and you can use pictures, shapes, colors, numbers for patterns. Colors, use 1 color before you move on to 2 or more. Shapes, use 1 shape before you move on to 2 or more. For numbers, just use 1 number. I'll show you what that means before you move on to 2 or more numbers for patterns. And here I have it, patterns 1 to 1 first. What comes next? You see you have the same shape circle but different colors, so just use 1 attribute. You have the shapes, different shapes, but you're using 1 attribute for that. And then the numbers, you're going up by 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 to find the next number. Okay, so this is what I mean by starting 1 to 1 before you get more than 1 attribute. Okay, 12, comparing length and height. Length is how long and height is how high. Use terms like as long as tall as, longer than, shorter than, taller than. So you need to present students with items. Again, at this stage, 2, use 2 to begin. So you can use 2 students, who is taller, who is shorter. Or you can use pencils, which is taller, erasers, which is longer, box, which is taller, and so on. Okay, comparing length and height. After you've done that lesson with length and height, you move on to them actually using things to compare the length or height. And if you're looking at height and length, may be the same thing. If you get a pencil and stand it up beside you, lay it down, and it's length. So don't worry about that. Okay, so you say how many paper clips would you need to measure the pencil or the eraser or the rug, how many feet it is, but not feet in inches. You walk along it and see how many it is. Okay, then we get to numbers, number words 1 to 20, but you begin with 1 to 5 only. and use their fingers on their hands. Get 5 fingers, so you can use that right away. They write the number and the number words from 1 to 5. So make sure they do that. They can color, they can count out or select 1 to 5 items, or they can place 1 to 5 items at a certain position. Okay, so here you have a question on it. From that, circle the number of birds, and they would have to circle the number 3, count it, and then circle 3, and give them similar exercise to do from 1 to 5. Okay, so that they can get the numbers from 1 to 5. Make sure you do the number and number words as you do the numbers from 1 to 5. Okay, then you move on to flat and solid shapes. Flat shapes, triangles, squares, rectangles, and circles we already dealt with. Solid shapes now: cones, rectangular prisms, cubes, cylinders, and squares. Flat shapes are long and wide, they have length and width. Solid shapes are long, wide, and high, and you must demonstrate that height for them to know it's a solid shape. Present students an assortment of flat and solid shapes. They must sort them into 2 groups, flat or solid. That's all you need them to do at this time. Okay, go over the names and make sure they can sort them based on if it's flat or solid. And here you have it set up, sort the shapes into 2 groups. They would place the flat shapes with the flat and the solid shapes with the solid. Okay, so this is the first thing you want them to be able to do, to sort the flat and solid shapes, and that they understand that height is important when it comes to solid shapes. If it doesn't have height, then it's a flat shape. Okay, they move on. You're moving on with the solid shapes now. You want them to know solids that can stack, slide, roll, and let them sort. Let them manipulate the solids to decide if it can stack, if it can slide, if it can roll. They have to actually do that themselves. And then once they've manipulated them, they can make up a chart or put them into the different groups based on whether they can stack, slide, or roll. But this they can easily do. So here you have it set up where they experiment, let them experiment, and then decide where they would place a solid shape based on the results of their experiments. If they can stack easily, roll easily, or slide easily. So this should be something they're able to do with minimal help from you, the instructor. Let them actually do this as an experiment. Okay, tally marks. Now we move on to tallies. And a tally is a simple way to keep track of numbers in groups of 5. A vertical line is used. So demonstrate the tally mark by you do it first, count out blocks or counters or students, and then you put the tally mark to show them how to actually do it. Read the tally marks, and then you use favorite or hot or solid or cold food. Remember, you already did hot or cold, so you can just use that to get your tally marks. And you must demonstrate this, how you do it. They can either cross it that way or cross it the other way, the diagonal way, the other way, from left, from the top to the bottom, going from the right to the left, or from left to the right. It doesn't really matter, but that's for 5. And you must show them how to do from 1 to 5, the tally marks for that. Okay, now you can gather information so they can use the tally marks for it. Number words 1 to 20 now, and so you're counting from 1, count from 1 to 2, use fingers, or count from 2 to 1. They're going forward and backward, so make sure they're able to recognize that, which is the greater number, which is the lower number. Okay, so this is important, and if they're writing the numbers from 1 to 5, they must be able to write 1 to 5, and then they can write from 5 to 1 as well, going backwards. Okay, and count the birds and write the number, the simple exercise for them to do. Okay, so you can do exercises with them and make sure they know how to go forward and how to go backwards. Not only must they know the numbers, but they must know whether the sequence is forward or backward. Okay, then you get the number words 1 to 20 again. Word problem: how many fingers are on one hand? Give the number and number word. Okay, so we're writing numbers from 1 to 5. So which is the lowest, which is the greatest number? Write from the lowest number to the greatest number, or write from the greatest number to the lowest number. So more exercises. on highest to lowest, or lowest to highest. Remember in the lesson before we did 1 and 2, so now you expanded it to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Here, circle the set of numbers that is in order from least to greatest. And so they would circle 1, 2, 3. Okay, you want it from least to greatest. If they want it from greatest to least, then it would be 3, 2, 1. But they must be able to do this from what you've done, or else you just have to reteach, okay, and ensure that they get it. Okay, we go back to flat shapes now, 20, and you deal with rectangles now. Pick up the rectangle, count the sides, count the corners, 4, shade in or color rectangles, cut out rectangles, and paste them on chart. Describe and color. You can use the Bahamian flag example of a rectangle. They can design their own flags using rectangles. So you want a class flag, let them design and make a class flag. You want a family flag, let them design and make a family flag. You want a school flag, make them design and color a school flag. Here you have an example of the Bahamian flag. They must know the colors, and they can see that it's made up of a triangle and rectangles. Okay, so rectangle with 4 rectangles has 4 sides and 4 corners. Okay, so make sure they can look at the flag and can associate it with being a rectangle. Geometry, again, we get back to solid shapes. A rectangular prism is a solid with 6 rectangular faces. Okay, present students with a rectangular prism, let them count the 6 rectangular faces, color them in. Let them color the 6 rectangular faces, identify common household items that are rectangular prisms, like shoe boxes, tissue boxes, etc. Any sort of box should be a rectangular prism. Okay, so they must be familiar with that term. Okay, we move on to calendar. 22 months of the year, first and last month. During which month do you celebrate your birthday? Make sure they can identify that. Recite the names of the month of the year in order. Count each month. Identify the first month, January, and the last month, December. Students will write their birth months and circle their birthday on a calendar showing their birth month. Write their birth date. Okay, so all of these stuff they can do with the calendar, but the main thing you want them to realize, first month, last month, and be able to say the names of the month in order. Okay, word problems. Do not teach word problems as a subject in itself. For each topic, for each subtopic that you encounter, you present with a word problem, so that the students, you won't have to teach this as a subject by itself. Okay, and they can use a calendar, and they can answer those problems there based on the calendar. What day does the month begin on the month that you present them with, on the calendar that you present them with. Okay, so we move on to 24 ordinals, show position, 1st to 5th, and they can, when they're doing, they can do this as a part of their daily routine when they line up, who's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, who's 5th or 10th in line. And when they're playing ball, you can let them play ball when they're on the bases, is 1st, 2nd, 3rd base, and then you can put circles and place circles in order, and then select students to stand in a certain position, stand in the second circle, and things like that. Okay, you get back to 25 patterns. They must translate, represent the same pattern in a different way. So that's all translating it means. So I gave you a pattern there with the birds, translate, change it to numbers. So it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So what would the next number be? 1, of course. So students must be able to do the translation and present them with various patterns and let them translate it from one medium to another. Okay, flat shapes, and we move on to squares now. And you must present them with squares. Pick up the square, count the sides, count the corners, describe the sides, shade in or color the squares, cut out squares, and paste them on charts. Make sure they understand that the square has 4 equal sides. That's important. It is a rectangle. It's a rectangle with 4 equal sides. That's why it's called a square. So there's a special name for it. Okay, geometry, move back to solid shapes, and this time you're dealing with a cylinder. Present them with the cylinder, let them count the faces, let them count the 6 faces, let them color the faces. It will be 2 faces for this, and identify common household items that are cylinders. They can do it for homework. Obtain common household items that are cylinders. Challenge, have them use a closed cylinder or an open cylinder. So the tissue roll paper would be open and the can would be closed. Okay, geometry, solid shapes, again, a cone. Present students with cones, let them count the faces, let them color the faces, Identify common household items that are cones, ice cream cones, party hats, etc. Challenge, compare a closed cone and an open cone. Again, ice cream cone would be open. It would have one flat face. So ensure they understand that if it is closed, it has one flat. If it is open, then it doesn't have a flat face, but let them be able to distinguish that. Okay, counting and number sense, 6 to 10. Introduce numbers from 6 to 10. So again, you're using numbers and number words from 6 to 10. And let them place numbers in sequence, least to greatest or greatest to least. And let them give them filling in missing numbers exercises. And let them select 6 to 10 items from a set. Or color 6 to 10 items. Cut out and paste 6 to 10 items. And place them under the correct number. Okay, geometry again, we move up to solid shapes. This time we're dealing with a pyramid. And present students with pyramids. Let them count the faces. Be 5 faces for this one. And let them color the faces. Identify common household items that are pyramids. And as a homework exercise, you can let them go home and make a pyramid that they would bring in. And that would be a project for them to do. And you can let them look at the Great Pyramids in Egypt. Geometry, solid shapes, again dealing with a square. So present them with squares and balls. And you shape this ball shape. Let them color the squares. Identify common household items of the squares, balls, marble, the earth, the globe, if you have it, use that also. And that's a square. So let them be able to pick out items of the squares or describe items that are squares for you. So let them do exercises with this as well. Remember, no sides. Word problems. Now, I have this here as word problems, but what I'm trying to tell you to do is this would go along with solid shapes. So where you present all of them. A solid shape has the most faces, has the least number, it rolls best, has 6 equal faces. What am I? So this would be word problems on solid shapes. Remember I told you for word problems, you present the word problem for each topic or for each subtopic instead of teaching it as a topic in itself. Counting and number sense 1 to 10, review numbers from 1 to 10, review number words from 1 to 10. Write these numbers in order from least to greatest, from greatest to least. They can do stuff like that. They will place numbers in sequence, least to greatest, greatest to least, missing number 1 to 10. So you want to review the numbers you've done from 1 to 10, and you can give them various exercises to do in order to do this review. You make sure they can use their fingers, counting from 1 to 10. Analog time to the hour, and they must know the minute hand, the hour hand, and know about o'clock. To tell time to the hour, the minute hand is on 12 an hour, and the hour hand points to the hour. Okay, so students will manipulate, let them manipulate clocks, the hands to show different times, and let them make a clock. Okay, they use paper plates and use paper and use brads in order to secure the hands. Again, word problems for time. You can set up word problems to deal with the clock and let them count forward or backward. If you left home at 7 and rode for 1 hour, at what time did he arrive at school? Use the clock to get the answer for that. Or the party began at 8 and ended at 10, so they go from 8 and count to 10, see how many hours it was, use the clock face to do it again. But make sure they're able to use the clock, the analog clock face, to work problems like this. Okay, we get to addition facts to 8 in all, sum plus equal, addition, sentence, add-ins, and addition. Now, addition sentence, make sure they know a sentence means it's an operation and then it has equal to something. So 3 plus 2 equal to blank, that's an addition sentence. Okay, and you can let them use counters, fingers to count on. Make sure they know what add-ins are. 3 plus 2, add-ins, and then the 5 would be the sum. So the answer is the sum. Okay, addition methods, count on. And you have a word problem, 3 boys and 2 girls. How many students in the group? Let them be able to count on. Go to 3, use a number line, go to 3, and then move 2 steps to the right. You end up at 5. So you count on from 3. Or use your fingers, just count for 5, and that's it. You just count on from 3. So you just need 2 fingers to count for the 2 girls, 4 or 5. Tally marks again. A simple way to keep track of numbers in groups of 5. A vertical line is drawn across, and the 5th number is made using a diagonal across the 4 vertical lines. Tally marks are 10 now. We did it to 5. Now you just continue on to 10. So make sure when you do you question students about certain things. You want to do favorite TV shows, favorite food, and then you do the tally chart and do the tally marks to show, and you're going up to 10. Okay, 39 addition facts to 10 in all sum, plus you're continuing with addition facts. Again, they must know what an addition sentence is. Make sure they know that it's equal. The equal sign makes it a sentence. Distribute counters. The student use counters to add the numbers, or they can use their fingers. Make sure they know the numbers you're adding are the add-ins, and the answer you get is the sum. So this is just continuing on addition facts for the students. And addition methods, counting on, again, you can use the one we have with the 5 plus 4 for the number students. Students can count using the number line. So you go to 5 and then you move 4 steps to the right, you end up at 9. Use your fingers, hold up your hand, and you count on. So you hold up 4 fingers because you're counting on from 5. So you say 6, 7, 8, 9, the 4 fingers, and you stop at 9. So the answer is 9. So make sure they're able to count on so they can do things efficiently. Okay, back to the analog clock, time to the hour, and you're continuing to tell time to the hour, and they'll manipulate the hour and minutes hand on clocks again. And you should have already let them make a clock, and they can use the clock to show different times, or you can tell them a time and let them show you the time on the clock. So 2 things you want them to do. Okay, they can show you the time, and then they can tell the time, and then that would be it. Counting 42, counting in number sense, 10 to 19. We're moving up now. So you're introducing numbers from 10 to 19 now. You've already done 1 to 10. You're moving on 10 to 19. And remember, you're using number and number words. So your number words from 10 to 19 as well. So they must know how to place, find missing numbers in a sequence, and then they will be able to select 10 to 19 or color 10 to 19 items, cut out and paste, and do stuff like that with that. Here I have circle a set of numbers that's in order from least to greatest again. So you could use the higher numbers to go from 1 to 20 for this, and let them use the 100 chart so that they won't have any problem with counting and with finding missing numbers, or the numbers before or numbers after. They can use the 100 chart or the number line to help them. So don't take those things away. 43 place value, now we're moving from 10 to 20. The number can be written as sum of 2 or more add-ins, and for place value you want it written as groups of 10s and 1s. So that's what you want to expose them to. So present them with counters or with blocks, place value blocks, and present them with a problem. So you're dealing with the number 12. There are 12 students in the class, so it'll be 110 plus 2 1s. Let them write the addition equation and then break it up. Analog time, you're going back to time to the hour, minute and hour and o'clock. And again, you want to continue with giving them problems based on time. And the 2 things you want them to do is you give a time and let them show you the time on the clock they made. And the other thing you want them to be able to is you present a time and let them tell you what it is. Okay, so they must be able to show it or answer questions based on it. Ordinals, show positions, and you're going from 1st to 5th. Again, during your daily, this will be part of your daily routine when they line up, and say who is what in what position in line. And then from that, you can use pictures, let them identify pictures in certain positions using ordinal numbers. Then who or what is second from left or the right. Make sure they're able to do questions like that as well. This question, circle the second flamingo. So they would circle the one in the middle. That's the second flamingo. Okay, so give them exercises in this. And then you can say circle the flamingo to the right of something or to the left of a position. And then they should be able to do that as well. And that would be it for grade 1 for the Christmas term, guys. Thank you all for watching, and hope you can put these things into play and that it would help your child or your student.